Hello, I'm Reverend Michael Mugford, and I'm part of the ministry team at Harbour, Woodside United Church, along with the Reverend Krista Elizabeth Wynne. As we have watched the demonstrations and protests over the last number of days in both the United States and Canada, it's important for us to think about how do we as a society express our anger, our pain, our frustration, and our distrust of systems of society, the ones that are at the very least unfair and at the very worst are outwardly hostile and discriminatory and racist to a growing number of people in our communities. Over the last number of days, the protests, both peaceful and violent, have led us to have to look at ourselves to understand who we are and what we are about. And how will we participate in the change that needs to happen in our society? There are those who would want to lump all of the various forms of protest and protester together and deny the legitimacy and the need of the Black Lives Matter movement. And we can't do that. It is a necessary movement because it holds up to us a mirror of who we are and who we should not be. I'm not a fan of violence. I haven't ever called for its use. However, in our society, I have to recognize that my ability to say something like that comes from a very privileged position in the hierarchy of our society. I must recognize that in our history, sometimes the only way to move the status quo for greater justice have been through protests, demonstrations, strikes. Due to many factors, these have turned violent in our past. And so what we're seeing today is truly not different than those who sought to make change in days gone by. Things like work stoppages and strikes led trade unions to secure better working conditions. Protests made child labor illegal. It was protests that helped to abolish slavery, and many other efforts that have not necessarily been desired by those in power politically or economically in our society. I have to admit that I cannot fully understand from my privileged position what is driving the desperation of the African Canadian and African American community. But that does not mean that they are wrong just because I don't understand. It means that it's up to me to learn. It's up to me to listen. It's up to me to stand behind and work alongside those who are willing to take leadership in the path to greater justice. It's up to me to stand and stay and say with those Black Lives Matter. That, I believe, is my call as a follower of Jesus. It's often pointed to an episode in the Gospels where Jesus enters into the courtyard of the temple and throws over the tables of the sellers and money exchangers. And I've wondered, what was he protesting that day? Was his anger fueled by the depth of his love of God alone? Or did he see the status quo inflicting hardship on those whom God loves? Jesus' anger must have risen within him as he recalled the words, perhaps, from the writings of the prophet Jeremiah. And I paraphrase when I say, God says, look at the ways that you are living and acting. Look at them and change them And when you do, you will find that I am in your heart and in this holy place. This place that has been holy has been overtaken by those who steal and cheat and lie. And I have seen these things, says God. And so have you. You know this is the truth. It is not just for the protesters to make way for change. It is for all of us as part of the society. We must learn and begin to understand that centuries of oppression, racism, classism, denial of human rights, denial of economic opportunity are built into our society. And we must be part of the change that is being demanded. That too is our call as people of faith, as followers of Jesus, as we seek to live out the gospel. I paraphrase again the words from Jeremiah from that same passage. If you stop and see what is happening, and work together for change, for justice for one another, and the way that society enables the oppressions of people, and end them for the immigrant, the refugee, and citizen alike. Care for the ones who are the most vulnerable, those who are poor, unemployed, suffering addiction, mentally or physically in pain, those who don't have access to what you do. Stop killing people who are different than you, different in skin color or language, sexual orientation or identity, faith. And stop doing it in my name. Stop chasing after the false gods of power, wealth, status, and possession. And if you do these things, says God, you will find that I live with you and within you, and you can find harmony in the land in which you are living forever and ever. As we move forward, may we continue to hear the call of the gospel, and may it lead us more deeply into God's love and justice in our world. Just some thoughts. Thank you.